world and welcome to a brand new Azure vlog. I hope you're all doing well. I'm doing fine. So with the upcoming threats and the whole future perspective of cybersecurity, automation is important. There are more and more signals coming in that we need to process. We can do that by hand. We need to automate that. Aside from the fact that we can't automate all those signals by hand, there is another factor which might get you interested. Automation is a lot cheaper than doing things by hand. We can automate an incident once, and we can use that automation every time the incident comes in. So it's much cheaper than putting a bunch of people against your incident response process. So in this video, I will show you some tips and tricks that can help you in setting up automation for Microsoft Sentinel. We will have a look at automation rules, which is a basic type of automation that is for you available in Microsoft Sentinel. And we will have a look at more advanced scenarios with logic apps and even scenarios where we combine them both. So without further ado, let's dive into the topic. So here we are at the Microsoft Sentinel workspace. Before we are going to have a look at automation rules and logic apps, also called playbooks in Microsoft Sentinel, I want you to have a look at the analytic rules. This is a really important place in Microsoft Sentinel. Every analytic rule that's configured over here can potentially generate incidents. Please make sure that your analytic rules are tuned well. You need to make sure that they have a false positive rate of, let's say, 50%. If it's more, then choose your battles and invest in analytic rule tuning before you are going to automate the investigation and response on the incident. So first, invest in a good analytic rule, and after that, invest in your automation rules and eventually logic apps. So if we go back to the Sentinel workspace, if you go to the tab automation over here, this is where you can find the automation rules. And automation rules can help you automate your incident at a very basic way. We can click on create and hit automation rule. That will bring us to the screen to create a new automation rule. We can give it a name. Let's say automate demo incident, and it has a trigger. We can trigger it when an incident is created. We can trigger it when an incident is updated, or we can trigger it when an alert is created. And please know that each incident in Microsoft Sentinel also has an alert connected. So we have a incident which is the parent, and it has children which are the alerts. And we want in this case to go for when the incident is created. Next up, we have the conditions. This is where we determine when and at what incident the analytic rule is executed. If you leave the configuration by default as shown here, it will execute at all your incidents that are incoming. We can select the analytic rule over here, or we can add other conditions like, for example, the title. And we can say contains, and then I can say, for example, demo incident. So when my title now has demo incident in it, it will trigger this automation rule. We can choose from a lot more over here. We can choose from entity properties, which is really helpful. So this allows us to execute this automation rule when a specific, let's say, IP address is being used. And this can be very interesting. If you have, let's say, a machine in your network which is doing automatic penetration tests every night, you want to filter out this incident. And you can do that by also matching on the IP address over here. I will go back and hit title and go for demo incident. And we had the condition contains over here. Next up is the part where we can define the action. So when this automation rule is triggered, what are we going to do? We can define that over here. And there are a couple of options over here. We can run a playbook, so we can call a logic app. The logic app starts executing. We can change the status of the incident. So this can be very helpful if you are in the situation that I told you earlier, where you want to exclude a certain IP address or something. You can automatically close the incident this way. Another option is to change the severity. So if the IP address is from one of your crown jewels, you can alter the severity and, for example, make it a little bit higher. We can assign a owner, so we can select a user over here, or we can add tags to the incident, or add a task. And this is a pretty nice thing. I did a video about tasks a couple of weeks ago, so I think it's somewhere on the screen over here or here. You can click on it and it will bring you to the video that explains tasks. But if we go back to the desktop, this is where we can add tasks. We can give them a title, let's say investigate IP address, and we can give them a description, some description. And if I leave it this way, the task will automatically be added to an incident which had title demo incident. I thought I just typed it over here. Oh, never mind. We can add multiple actions. So let's say we also want to raise the severity to high. We can do that. And we want to change, let's say, the status to active, as it's an incident that's already prepared and can be executed. Next up, we can set some expiration dates over here. So if you know that a pen test or something is being executed on a certain time, you can use that date over here to make sure that you filter out some IP addresses or stuff during the penetration test. I leave it at indefinite, which means it gets executed always. There is an order over here. As you see, I have multiple automation rules configured in this workspace, and they are executed in order. So if I have multiple automation rules that are matching with my incident, they will get executed in this order. So if I click on apply, my automation rule is created. And if I go to incidents and I click on create new incident and I give it a title with demo incident in it, blah, blah. Hello world, as it's just a test, the severity is medium, status is new, it has no owners or no tags. If I click on create, my incident is created. And now the magic happens. Our automation rule is being executed. And if we go back to our incident, we will see that some things have changed from the moment that I've created my incident. So let's go back to the desktop. If I click on my incident over here, we see that it just changed from medium to high severity. There is one task added. And it has the status active. So this is our automation rule that got executed. If I click on view details and we go to tasks, you'll see that my investigate IP address task has been added. we go to the activity log, we see that an automation rule has altered our incident. So the incident status was changed and the severity was changed. So this is pretty neat and awesome. So automation rules are a very quick and powerful way of automating your incident response. You can use them in a lot of situations. The situation that I showed you in my previous demo is where we have, for example, a penetration test. And you want to auto-close a lot of incidents during that penetration period. We can pick the IP address of, let's say, a scanner or something that's being used during the penetration test and use that in our automation rule to close your incident. That's really helpful. If you want to do more advanced types of automation where you enrich an incident or even go further and really respond on the incident, that's when we need to have a look into logic apps, also called playbooks in Microsoft Sentinel. So let's go back into the Azure portal and I'll show you around. Okay, so here we are back at my Sentinel workspace, and if I go to Logic Apps over here, there's also a way of searching for Logic Apps over here that will bring you to the same screen. If I click on Add, I can create a new app. And let's first focus on our first scenario, and that is enriching an incident. So if I go on my first subscription, and let's hit my resource group Sentinel Automation. Let's give my logic app a name. And the name I'm going for is Enrich Incident with KQL. And that's available. It's a workflow and we want to run it in West Europe. It's a consumption-based logic app. As this is my demo environment, it takes a lot of money when I want to go for the standard environment. I will leave zone redundancy disabled as this is just a demo. I won't apply any tags to it. And let's click on create over here as this is all looking good to me. So Microsoft Azure is now deploying our logic app. If I click on go to resource over here, that will bring me to the logic app. And this is the wizard where we can start. There are a lot of built-in logic apps that you can click on with templates and all that kind of stuff. But we are going for a blank logic app. And the first thing that we need to do right now is select our trigger. And the trigger is the thing that starts the logic app. So if I search over here for Sentinel, it takes a minute to load all the things. We have triggers over here. We can trigger at a Microsoft Sentinel alert. We can trigger at a Microsoft Sentinel entity, and we can trigger on the Microsoft Sentinel incident. In this case, we are going for the incident. Let's click on that. It is already connected to my Sentinel workspace as I have multiple logic apps already deployed in my resource group. It's quite easy to do this the first time. You need to select your workspace, probably log in with an account with the right permissions, and you're done. So now we have our trigger. Let's go and click on Microsoft Sentinel over here. That will bring us all the activities that we can execute on a Sentinel workspace. In this case, I'm going to go for IP address, get IP address. We want to enrich an incident which already has an IP address somewhere in it, and we want to know, in this case, if there are any sign-ins earlier seen from this IP address. I need to search for the entities over here. What this basically does, the logic app gets triggered. It has all the attributes and variables of an incident. And what I actually doing over here is get all the IP address entities out of the entities list that is with my incident. The next step is I'm going to search for monitor as I want to execute a KQL query, and we need to have the Azure monitor logs activity over there. Run a query and list the results. I need to select my subscription. Sentinel 01, that's where my workspace is in. It's a log analytic workspace. And here it is. And the query that I would like to execute is sign-in logs where IP address is. And then I fill in the IP address over here. The query will run and it has some results. We want to have them available at our incident. So let's create a task that automatically displays the results. If I go to Sentinel, search for task, we can add a task to our incident. We need to select the ARM ID of our incident over here. If we search for ARM, we get the ARM ID of our incident, which is the unique ID of the incident. Sign in scene with IP address. Here's the funny thing. If I click over here, I can't select the output of my run query and list results activity. If I go over here and click see more, I click on value, I can copy that and paste it in here. Let's be nice and add some text also. KQL results. And then we print out our value. I now can save. Oh, I need to time range. Okay, so I forgot to set the time range over there. And a thing that's important to know, when you use a variable like this, the time range selector will not resolve good. So if you copy this out, we can select our time range. If we copy it back, then everything works when we click on save. Okay, let's now have a look at Microsoft Sentinel and see how we can trigger this logic app. Before I'm going to show you how we can trigger this logic app, I want you to know that I already have set up a sample analytic rule that will generate an incident with an IP address connected to it. If we go back to my desktop and we go to analytic rule, we have a sample rule over here, which actually does nothing than querying the Azure activity table. Please know that this is for demo purposes, so nothing really interesting is getting queried over here. It runs every 10 minutes, and we have configured a IP address entity over here. And this is important as our logic app iterates through the entities and checks whether there is a IP address available and does the enrichment based on that. So if I now go back to my Sentinel workspace and I go to automation, I can create a new automation rule over here. I can call it enrich incident. It will trigger it when the incident is created, and it will be executed for sample rule only. The action that I would like to execute is run a playbook. If I click on this, this will list a lot of my logic apps, but not all of them. If I search for enrich, that will get us to the logic app that we created a minute ago. I will leave the rule expiration and the order by default. I can click on apply, and this will now save my automation rule, which will trigger the logic app. If it is your first time that you are creating an automation rule that will trigger a logic app, you probably have to give permission to the resource group where the logic app is located. It's quite easy. There's a link which you can click on, and that will automatically deploy the right permissions for you. So let's now wait a minute and see when our incident is incoming. Okay, and so while we are waiting, let's grab a really nice and good cup of coffee. Okay, here we are back at the Microsoft Sentinel portal. And as you can see, the sample rule has triggered. If I go to view full details, that rule brings me to the incident detail view. As you can see, there was an IP entity assigned to this incident. And if we go to tasks, you'll see that there is a sign-in scene with IP address task deployed. If I click on it, it's not that many what it showed here, but it really executed the KQL query. And let me show that to you. If we go to home and I click on my enrich incident with KQL logic app, you'll see that it got triggered. And if I click on this run, you can see that it executed the following query with the IP address in here. Unfortunately, nobody signed into this Azure Active Directory with this IP address, so the output was empty. Next up, Microsoft Sentinel just added the braces to the description of the task, and that's what we see in Microsoft Sentinel. But this is a way how we can use logic apps to enrich our incident, which is really helpful. In this demo, I just showed you how you can enrich your incident using a other KQL query, but there are tons of other examples available. We can use VirusTotal to enrich our incident. We can use ChatGPT to automatically write out the incident response steps, as I've showed you earlier in one of my videos. You can do a lot of things with logic apps. The power is in your hands. So in this video, you saw how we can do basic automation with automation rules in Microsoft Sentinel. They are available. You don't have to create any other resources for them. They are just there. They are really easy to deploy and configure. Next up, we had a look at logic apps, and I showed you a scenario where we enrich an incident with KQL data, which will help our incident responders to respond faster on the incident, do more with less clicks. Also enrichment and filtering, all that kind of stuff. I call that automation. So if you like this video, please hit the thumbs up button. Of course, subscribe to this channel. Subscribing means a lot to me. That will help me so much in growing this channel. And with that, I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!